Well, welcome to this, possibly my first YouTube video. And what you are seeing in front of you is a model of the Moonraker from the James Bond film Moonraker. Specifically, this is Moonraker 6. This particular model is built from the Monogram stack. The full space shuttle with solid rocket boosters and external tank. I thought I would shoot this video to kind of showcase some of the things you can do with that big Monogram kit, the 1/72nd scale kit. So let's get started. So the work I did to start with to turn this model from an original shuttle into a Moonraker was I applied putty to the splits in the wings and also the tail section. Specifically, I used a two-part epoxy putty called Aves Epoxy Sculpt. Milliput is a very similar putty. Does the job very well, in my opinion. I also filled the recessed areas in the doors because pretty much all the details on this shuttle were pretty much mostly drawn on, except for large areas such as the seam where the payload bay doors meet the fuselage. Okay, here you see Moonraker again. I'm going to focus on the orbiter here. If you look close at the details here, you'll notice that I took off most of the raised details and replaced them with either decal or paint. Don't know how well this will show up, but I also used pencil and drew on some tile lines as well. Very similar to what the studio model has. That docking hatch on the side is a decal. The Moonraker logo is a decal. Just below the Moonraker logo you can see the demarcation between a couple shades of the paint. I was playing around with some weathering effects, as it were. Now, the Drax logo on the side of the orbiter is a decal. The color paint that I use to represent the orange is Floquil Union Pacific light orange. And on the tail and on the belly, rather than using straight black, I went with, to me, a flat brown. Mainly because not a lot of people realize this, but the Moonraker shuttle models actually had most of their tile areas painted in brown instead of black. This was because the way the effects crew shot the film, they shot the models against a black screen, and they wanted the black of the orbiter to appear against the black of the sky, so they did those tile areas in brown. The only areas that remained in black are some of the small detail areas and areas like the cockpit windows right here. I could have just painted it straight color and said, okay, that's it, but I decided to play around with adding some of the weathering effects to the wings with an airbrush. And that includes the streaking on the gray reinforced carbon panels to kind of represent the panel line splits. What I did was I mixed a diluted mixture of Tamiya clear and smoke tint. I didn't use full strength smoke, and shot that through an airbrush using masking tape to kind of mask off the demarcations. The areas on the gray RCC panels are essentially the full strength color I used. Where it hit the white areas, it was a little too dark, so I went over and remisted on some white paint to fade them back. Some of these areas that you see there are a little darker, such as that panel right there, and some smaller panels above and below. Those were just done with flat white mixed with a drop or two of a darker gray shade, just to pop the color a little bit. represent areas where panels might have been replaced or repainted. You can kind of see that going up the length of the entire orbiter, the external tank, and the solid rocket boosters. On the external tank, you can see some banding that was done the same way. I just went with a slightly darker white mixture, just white mixed with some gray shade, to create like a pinstripe gray line. Gives a nice effect to an otherwise featureless model. Solid rocket boosters are painted about the same way. You can see some slightly darker color up there. The markings you see, like the yellow rectangular areas with the A on it, those 4 dots in that square area, those are custom-made decals made on an Alps printer. A individual in New Zealand by the name of John Elite did a really good job of taking some nice screen captures from the Blu-ray, and I gotta tell you, Blu-ray you can see a lot more detail than you ever could on the standard resolution DVDs. I don't have a Blu-ray player yet. I know, I'm cheap. But I do intend to get one. And when I do, I'm definitely adding Moonraker to my collection, because it may be kind of rubbish as a Bond film, but if you like shuttles like I do, you can really fall in love with the special effects work that Derek Meddings and his team did. I'm particularly proud of this effect I was able to pull off on the outer elevon here. That's drawn on tile lines and using masking tape I masked off areas, sprayed on my smoke tint mixture, and didn't really have to dilute it back to with the white after I shot it, because by this point I was getting pretty good at being able to spray it properly without too much trouble. Now, one of the reasons I like the Monogram kit for doing a Moonraker is the windows are kind of oversized. And funny enough, the Moonraker studio models also have slightly oversized windows compared to what you see on a regular orbiter. So all I did was put some, I believe it was either 60 thousandths or 80 thousandths wide styrene strip in the borders here, here, and all around, and sanded them flush with the rest of the body because the windows are kind of semi-recessed. As a result, they blend in really nice. Now, doing this, it meant I did have to apply some future floor polish to the windows to get them to a high shine. I had to polish scratches out of them, polish them back to a high shine. There's a little yellow area that you can see in the window. I don't know how well you can see that, but that is actually a pilot figure I added. There are 2 figures in there, one for James Bond and one for Holly Goodhead. Holly Goodhead is in the commander's seat because she knew how to fly a shuttle. James didn't, so she's sitting in the left-hand seat. James is sitting in the right-hand seat. The thruster ports on the Monogram kit are actually plugged, and for a real shuttle, when they're sitting on the pad, the thrusters are covered with either paper or Tyvek covers that are designed to blow off on ascent. For the studio models for Moonraker, the thrusters were exposed, and so I had to drill holes and backfill them with 2-part epoxy putty, and I used a sharpened pencil to get the right shape in. For those of you that are familiar with the Monogram kit, you'll note that the details on these SRB nose cones, on my model, they're featureless, while the kit has a lot of detail. And, well, that's done on purpose because I wanted to make this look more like a studio model rather than an actual shuttle. So it took a lot of putty work to get all that detail off and sanded flush. External tank, I did some modification of the main liquid oxygen feed line to make it look more like a studio model, and the inner tank area, where this is the liquid oxygen tank above, the liquid hydrogen tank below is featureless. I accomplished this by wrapping the inner tank region with two pieces of, I believe, 20 thousandths sheet styrene. And it kind of makes it look like an oversized version of an Airfix shuttle. If anybody's ever built the Airfix shuttle stack, they'll note that the external tank, inner tank region is featureless as well, and that's because the way the Airfix kit is molded, this is two pieces, this is one piece, and this area here is two pieces, so they had to do that to get everything to fit together properly rather than molding the entire tank as two halves. Now, one thing you will notice, though, is that the external tank is smooth. It doesn't have the rough texture that Monogram molded into the kit. And I did that for a reason, because the Moonraker stacks do not have rough tanks either. And it took a lot of work to sand all that detail off. It's funny how if you want to try to keep that detail when you're filling seams, such as on the nose there, it's very easy to take that detail off, but for some reason it's just really hard to take that detail off when you intentionally want to remove that detail. So it took a lot of work, and at the end I looked like Al Pacino from Scarface after a major cocaine binge because I had so much white powder all over me. Now, if you look close at the stand, you'll notice a signature on it. It says Jaws approved, Richard Keel. I was able to get this model signed by Richard Keel at a charity event where they showed The Spy Who Loved Me, and Richard Keel is one of the only Bond villains to ever appear in two of the films. And, well, he was pretty appreciative of the work that I did, and he gave his stamp of approval. Thankfully, he didn't take a bite out of the stand. Now, this orange conduit pipe that runs down the sides of the SRBs, I couldn't really tell for sure whether that was on all the full stack studio models or not, but it did pop up in the screen captures for Moonraker 5, so I interpreted that it likely was on the Moonraker 6 stack as well, because near as I could tell, it was the same studio model built for both Moonraker 5 and 6, they just did some minor repaint work between takes. So, and the thing I like about it is it does add a nice bit of color to the mix. Now I think I'll give you one more pass of the nose area, going on down. You can see the drawn on pencil lines on the nose, gray patches, details on top of the payload bay doors, going down the bottom of the stack, the tail, the patch, the signature. I'm pretty proud of this, if I say so. And not too many people have ever tried Moonraker stacks, mainly because the Monogram kits were so hard to obtain. But now that the kit is back out, if this is something you think you want to do, well, looking at what I was able to accomplish with mine, it is definitely feasible. All you have to have is an idea, the materials, and are willing to put forth the time to do it. So if you can do it, go ahead. Thank you for watching.